The moon hung low over Silverwood Forest, casting pale silver light over the twisted trees and the mist that clung to the ground like a living shroud. Villagers whispered tales of the werewolf packs that roamed the night, their howls echoing through the mountains, and of the moon goddess who watched over the world with a judgment both merciful and cruel. Lyria's small cottage sat at the edge of the forest, near the cliffs that dropped sharply into the river below. Her hands trembled as she clutched the wooden pendant that hung around her neck, a gift from her late mother. Tonight she was not thinking of herself, but of her younger sister, Ilara, whose laughter had always been like sunlight cutting through the shadows. "You don't have to be afraid," Lyria whispered, trying to steady her voice as she knelt at the shrine she had built under the largest oak in their yard. "Please, protect my sister. I cannot lose her to him." The wind stirred the leaves, and for a moment the world seemed still. Then a soft silver glow descended from the sky, bathing Lyria in light so pure it made her heart ache. She gasped as the air seemed to hum around her. A voice, soft and musical, yet carrying a weight of ancient power, filled her mind. "Fear not, child. Your prayer is heard," the moon goddess said, her words wrapping around Lyria like silk. "But fate is never simple. One will be taken. One will be offered. You may not choose the path, only walk it." Before Lyria could ask what she meant, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. A figure stepped forward, tall, cloaked in darkness. Yet his eyes glimmered like molten gold. The villagers' warnings came rushing back. The Alpha King, Kaelin. Known as the fiercest of all werewolf rulers, his presence alone could silence forests. His eyes fixed on Lyria's sister, and her heart clenched. "Ilara," she breathed. But before she could move, a strange pull lifted her off the ground. The world spun, silver light streaking past her, and a sense of vertigo tore through her. Then everything went still. When Lyria opened her eyes, she was no longer in the forest. She stood in a hall of obsidian stone, towers stretching high into darkness, lit only by the silver glow of lanterns filled with enchanted flames. Shadows moved as if alive, and the air smelled of wet stone and old magic. A low, commanding voice echoed through the hall. "You are here. The moon goddess's choice is made." Lyria's heart pounded. She turned slowly and saw Kaelin approaching, his long hair black as midnight, his form both regal and terrifying. The Alpha King's presence was magnetic, drawing attention with every measured step. "You," Lyria's voice caught, "you wanted my sister." Kaelin's lips curved into a faint smile, not cruel, but amused. "I sought her," he said, his voice deep, carrying the weight of command. "But the moon has decided otherwise. It is you who stands before me." Lyria's stomach dropped. She had prayed for protection, but she had never imagined this. "Why me?" she demanded, trying to stand tall despite the tremor in her legs. "Because," Kaelin said, stopping just a few steps from her, "the moon chooses not only to protect, but to test. Your courage, your heart, they are rare." "You are stronger than you believe, Lyria." Her name on his lips made her pulse quicken, though fear still gripped her. She realized then that she was completely in his power, and yet, in that same moment, she sensed something strange. Kaelin was not entirely cruel. There was a flicker behind his golden eyes, a shadow of curiosity, perhaps even respect. "You will stay," he continued, "until the moon allows your sister to return. You are under my protection, whether you wish it or not." Lyria's mind raced. She thought of Ilara alone, vulnerable, and she swallowed hard. "If you harm her..." Kaelin's eyes narrowed. "I harm only those who threaten my pack or the balance of this forest. Your sister is safe. But you are my responsibility." Responsibility. The word echoed strangely in Lyria's mind. Responsibility for her was not the same as cruelty, yet it was binding, suffocating. She felt the weight of the palace around her, the grand halls, the echoes of old battles, the eyes of shadows that seemed to watch her every move. Days passed, though Lyria could not tell how many. Time in Kaelin's palace flowed differently. She learned to navigate the halls, avoiding the curious betas and the watchful sentries. Yet each encounter with Kaelin drew her attention more than she wished. He was always observing, always testing her limits, sometimes with a question, sometimes with a challenge, and always with that golden gaze that made her heartbeat quicken. It was during a walk in the moonlit gardens that the full weight of her situation struck her. The air was fragrant with night-blooming flowers, and silver light made the petals glimmer like water. Kaelin approached silently, and Lyria spun around, ready to demand distance. "Do not fear me," he said, his tone softer than usual. "You are not here as a captive. You are here because the moon has chosen you." "I didn't choose this," Lyria said, tears brimming. "I wanted to protect my sister, not be this." Kaelin's expression shifted just slightly. It was not anger, but a shadow of something else. Regret, perhaps, or sorrow. Sometimes fate does not ask what we want. Sometimes it only asks what we are capable of. She studied him, trying to see the man beneath the fearsome alpha, the one whispered about in stories. She wondered if he had ever known loneliness, if he had ever wished for a choice of his own. Then came the first test of her courage. A rival clan sent scouts. Invisible in the night, seeking to claim the palace and disrupt the balance. Alarms sounded and the air vibrated with tension. Kaelin moved like a shadow, commanding his guards, his voice both authority and reassurance. "Stay inside," he instructed Lyria. "No harm will come to you if you obey." But Lyria could not stay. She ran to the balcony overlooking the forest, her heart hammering. From the edge of the trees, figures moved with lethal grace. Her sister's face flashed in her mind, and she knew she could not stand idly by. Kaelin appeared at her side, faster than thought, his presence overwhelming yet protective. "You are brave," he said quietly, almost as if surprised. "But this is no place for you." "I cannot just wait," she replied. "Ilara." Her voice broke. Kaelin's eyes softened. For the first time, Lyria saw something human in him, a flicker of empathy behind the Alpha's command. "Then we act together," he said, and the words carried weight beyond mere alliance. The battle outside was brief but fierce. Lyria watched from the balcony as Kaelin and his pack moved like shadows through the moonlight, striking with precision and ferocity. The forest itself seemed to bend to his will, protecting the palace from those who sought to harm it. When it was over, Kaelin returned, calm, composed, and yet his golden eyes searched her face as though measuring her courage. "You are alive," he said simply. "Yes," she replied, trembling. "And I still want to protect her." A silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken words. Kaelin reached out, his hand brushing against hers, not a touch of dominance, but something else, something careful. "You are unlike any who have stood before me," he said. "The moon did not make a mistake." Lyria's breath caught. The words, the touch, the weight of the palace around them, it all pressed down like gravity. She wanted to hate him, to fear him, yet something deeper stirred within her. Curiosity, fascination, and a spark of something she could not name. That night, as she lay in the small chamber provided for her, Lyria could not sleep. The moon shone through the window, casting silver light across her face. She thought of her sister, alone in the village, and of Kaelin, the Alpha who was both a threat and a protector. A soft whisper of magic brushed against her mind. The moon goddess's presence as fleeting as a dream. Trust and yet be wary. Courage and heart may save more than strength. Lyria did not understand the full meaning, but she felt it in her chest, a promise, a warning, and a destiny waiting to unfold. And she realized, with a mixture of fear and longing, that her life had changed forever. Outside, the howl of a wolf echoed through Silverwood Forest, low and commanding, full of power and mystery. And from deep within the palace, Kalen's golden eyes glimmered in the moonlight, watching her even as he pretended not to. The bond had begun, though neither understood its depth. And somewhere, in the shadows of destiny and magic, the moon goddess smiled, knowing that the threads of fate had intertwined in ways the world had never seen before. As the first light of dawn touched the towers, a whisper of the future lingered in the air, a warning, a challenge, and a promise. Lyria was no longer just a mortal girl. She was chosen, and soon she would learn just how dangerous and profound that choice could be. The palace was quiet in the early hours, yet Lyria could not rest. The moonlight poured through the tall arched windows, casting long silver beams across the polished stone floors. She walked the halls alone, her bare feet silent on the cool stones, feeling both trapped and strangely alive. The palace was a world of shadow and whispers, a place where every corridor seemed to hold secrets and every room carried the weight of history. Kalen had allowed her freedom to walk the halls at night, though always under subtle watch. It was both a test and a gift, she realized. With each passing day, she discovered small truths about the Alpha King. He was not merely fierce or commanding, there was depth behind his golden eyes, shadows of grief and regret beneath the surface of his strength. In the moonlit garden, she paused. The flowers glimmered with silver dew, their scent heavy and intoxicating. She felt the pull of the forest beyond the walls, the untamed wild calling her, and she felt, too, the presence of Kalen behind her, silent as the shadows, his gaze both protective and probing. "You should not wander here alone," he said, his voice low, carrying the authority of a man used to command. "I needed air," Lyria replied, her voice firm, though her heart raced. "The palace is beautiful, but it feels like a cage." Kalen stepped closer, his long cloak brushing against the soft grass. "The forest is freedom, yes, but it is also danger. You are not like the others, Lyria. You are chosen, and the moon has its reasons." She turned to face him fully. "Chosen for what? To be trapped here while my sister waits in fear?" The words were sharper than she intended, but she needed to understand. Kalen's golden eyes softened, a flicker of something almost tender appearing in the Alpha, who was otherwise known for his cold command. "The moon does not take lightly," he said. "You are here to protect, to endure, and perhaps to awaken something long buried. Your courage is unlike any I have seen. Do not mistake it for weakness." Lyria's breath caught. His words were not a threat, yet they carried power she could feel vibrating in her chest. And she realized then that she was drawn to him, not merely fear, but curiosity, fascination, and an emotion she had not expected. Days turned into weeks, and Lyria began to learn the rhythm of the palace and the pack. She discovered that the Alpha King's strength was not only in his physical might, but in the way he commanded loyalty and respect. The guards and betas moved with precision, every action measured to maintain the balance of power. Rival clans watched from the edges of the forest, seeking any weakness to exploit. One evening, Kalen invited her to walk with him along the outer balcony, overlooking the forest shrouded in mist. The moon was full, glowing like a silver sentinel in the sky. Lyria could see the trees swaying in the breeze, the forest alive with the whisper of ancient magic. "You have changed," Kalen said, breaking the silence. His voice was quiet, yet it carried the weight of mountains. "You are braver than when you arrived. The moon's gift, or curse, awakens in you. I do not know what you mean, Lyria said, though she felt the truth of it. There was a strange energy pulsing inside her since the night she had been brought here. Sometimes she felt the trees bend subtly toward her, the air respond to her emotions, and at times the moonlight seemed to wrap around her like a protective cloak. Your presence stirs the balance, Kalen said, his gaze fixed on the forest below. There is power in you, power that can change the fate of this pack, perhaps even the fate of me. Lyria felt a shiver, part fear and part something else. I do not want to change you, she whispered. I just want to save my sister. Kalen's head tilted, and a shadow of a smile curved his lips. Sometimes, to protect others, we must change ourselves. Courage, heart, and choice, these are weapons more powerful than claws or strength. That night, the palace was stirred by an alarm. From the darkness of the forest, figures moved like whispers, attempting to breach the outer walls. Rival clans, seeing the Alpha King distracted by his strange ward, sought to take advantage. Kalen moved with the fluid precision of a predator. Guards leapt into position, weapons drawn, but Kalen's presence alone commanded respect and fear. Stay inside, he told Lyria, though she had already moved toward the balcony, compelled by the instinct to protect. Do not be foolish, he warned, yet there was no anger in his voice, only a mixture of concern and curiosity. Lyria's pulse raced as she leaned over the railing, watching the intruders move through the shadows. Then, without thinking, she whispered a small prayer to the moon goddess, and instinctively, a faint silver glow wrapped around her hands. A gentle wave of magic pushed back the intruders, causing them to stumble and retreat, surprised by the sudden force. Kalen's eyes widened, and for a moment he did not move. Then he was at her side, his presence solid and commanding, yet careful. You have power, he said quietly, awe and caution mixing in his voice. I did not expect this. I only wanted to protect them, Lyria admitted, her voice trembling. I do not understand it. The moon chooses its own way, Kalen said, and you are its instrument. That night, Lyria could not sleep. She lay in her chamber, moonlight spilling over the floor, and thought of her sister, alone and unaware that the moon had altered the path of fate. She thought of Kalen, whose power and presence filled her thoughts, confusing her emotions with every memory of his golden gaze. Days later, Kalen approached her with a proposition. You cannot remain idle, he said. Your power grows, and the pack must see it. You must train, learn to control it, to understand the bond that forms between us. Only then will you understand the purpose the moon has chosen for you. Lyria nodded, though fear churned in her stomach. She was unsure if she wanted the power or the bond it created. She was unsure if she could trust the Alpha King, whose dominance and charisma were both thrilling and terrifying. As the training began, Lyria discovered more about herself. Her connection to the moon allowed her to sense Kalen's emotions, subtle shifts in his mood, moments of hesitation, and even glimpses of pain hidden beneath his command. It was as though the moon had intertwined their fates, making her an observer of the Alpha's soul, as well as a participant in his world. One evening, during a lesson in the palace's highest tower, the moon full and brilliant, Kalen watched her focus her energy, shaping it with care. Your strength is not just magic, he said softly. It is courage, heart, a refusal to yield. That is rare in any of the world's creatures, mortal or immortal. Lyria's heart pounded. She looked at him, unsure whether his words were praise, a warning, or something more. And what of you? She asked. Do you ever wish you could choose? Kalen's gaze turned to the moon, his expression distant. I have chosen before many times, but choices are costly. The pack, the balance, the past, they bind me. Yet now, with you, I feel something I have not felt in centuries, something dangerous and necessary. The night deepened, and their shadows stretched long across the stone floor. The air between them was heavy with unspoken tension, a delicate dance of power, fear, and attraction, neither fully understood. Then came a message from the rival clans, delivered under the cover of darkness, a challenge, an open threat, a test of Kaelin's strength and Lyria's role in his world. Kaelin's lips pressed into a thin line. They wished to see the bond broken, to see weakness exploited. But the moon has other plans. He turned to Lyria, his golden eyes intense. Tomorrow, you will see how deep your courage truly runs, and perhaps how powerful your heart can be. The words left her breathless. She had trained, learned, and begun to understand her own strength, yet the danger that awaited them in the forest was unlike anything she had imagined. And Kaelin, for all his dominance, seemed both protective and drawn to her in ways that made her pulse quicken. That night, as the wind whispered through the palace towers, Lyria stood at the balcony, gazing at the forest beyond. She could feel the power in the trees, in the shadows, in the moonlight itself. She could feel Kaelin behind her, the heat of his presence close, steady, reassuring, yet commanding. Tomorrow, she whispered to the night, we face what is coming, together. And in the stillness the moon goddess stirred, her presence like a silver current flowing through the palace. She watched, patient and eternal, knowing that the threads of destiny were weaving tightly around Lyria and Kaelin. The bond that had begun under the first full moon now pulsed with a rhythm neither fully understood, a connection of power, courage, and a strange, unspoken longing. As the first stars faded before dawn, a distant howl rose from Silverwood Forest, low and warning. Lyria shivered, feeling it in her bones. The next day would test them both, not only against rival packs, but against the emotions and destinies the moon had entwined in ways far beyond mortal comprehension. The full moon rose high above Silverwood Forest, a brilliant orb casting its silver light across the treetops and palace towers. The wind carried whispers of magic, twisting through the branches, stirring the mist that clung to the ground. Lyria stood at the balcony, feeling the pulse of the forest beneath her feet. Her heart raced, not only with fear of what was to come, but with the strange connection that had grown between her and Kaelin. Kaelin appeared behind her, his presence both commanding and protective. He placed a hand lightly on the railing beside hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. "Tonight," he said, his voice low and steady, "we face what the moon has chosen for us. You are ready. Do you trust yourself?" Lyria swallowed, her gaze on the forest below, where shadows moved and glimmered like restless spirits. "I trust what I have learned, and I trust you," she said, though the words felt heavy with meaning. She did not yet fully understand the bond between them, but she felt it deep in her chest, a tether of courage, magic, and something more, something unspoken yet undeniable. Kaelin's golden eyes softened, and for the first time he allowed a small smile to cross his face. "Then we walk this path together. No retreat, no fear." The moon guides us. The palace gates opened, and the first wave of rival clan forces appeared, moving swiftly and silently through the mist. Lyria's pulse quickened as Kaelin's pack responded with equal precision, leaping into position like shadows of the night. The forest itself seemed to tremble with anticipation. Lyria focused her energy, her hands glowing with the silver light of the moon goddess. She could feel the connection to Kaelin, subtle yet powerful, as though their hearts and powers resonated with one another. Together, They would face what was coming, though neither knew the full extent of the challenge. The battle began with a roar. Wolves leapt and clashed, the sound echoing through the forest like rolling thunder. Lyria moved beside Kaelin, her magic flowing through her, protecting the pack and striking against the intruders. Every movement, every decision required courage she did not always feel, yet she pressed on, driven by the bond the moon had woven between them. Kaelin fought with his usual precision, his golden eyes blazing with determination. And yet, he was different tonight. He fought not only for his pack, but for Lyria, for the courage she had awakened in him, for the bond that had begun under the first full moon. The rival clans pushed forward, relentless and cunning. Lyria sensed their intentions, feeling the forest itself respond to her magic. Trees shifted slightly, roots rising to block paths, mist thickening to confuse the attackers. She was no longer merely mortal. The moon's gift had made her a force of nature, intertwined with Kaelin and the forest alike. Amid the chaos, Kaelin called out her name and she ran toward him, their powers converging in a moment of unspoken understanding. Together they moved like a single entity, strength and courage blending, their bond a shield against the darkness that threatened the forest. The tide of the battle shifted, but not without cost. One of the rival leaders broke through the defenses, charging toward Lyria with lethal intent. Kaelin intercepted him, claws flashing in the moonlight, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Lyria's magic surged, a wave of silver light knocking the intruder back, but the effort left her exhausted and trembling. Kaelin caught her as she faltered, his strength steadying her. "You are stronger than you know," he said quietly, his golden eyes locked on hers. "The moon has chosen well." She looked at him, fear and admiration mingling in her gaze. "I could not do this alone," she admitted. "No one can," Kaelin replied, his voice carrying both authority and tenderness. "But together, we are unstoppable." The battle reached its climax as the rival clans made their final push. The forest itself seemed to rise, guided by the moon's magic and Lyria's courage. Silver light wrapped around her hands, spreading like a protective wave through the trees, striking down those who threatened the balance. Kaelin fought beside her, a fierce and steady presence, his golden eyes reflecting pride, respect, and something more. Finally, the last of the intruders fell, retreating into the shadows of the forest. The air was thick with the scent of earth and mist, the sounds of the forest slowly returning to normal. Lyria sank to her knees, exhausted, yet exhilarated by the victory. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You faced fear, danger, and emerged stronger. You are truly chosen." Lyria looked up at him, her chest rising and falling with rapid breaths. "It was not just me," she said softly. "It was us, together." Kaelin's gaze lingered on her, golden eyes full of warmth and something more, something he had not allowed himself to feel for centuries. "Yes," he said. "Together." The moon shone brighter that night, as if acknowledging their courage and unity. Lyria felt a surge of magic within her, a connection to Kaelin that went beyond words or understanding. It was as if the moon itself had woven their destinies into one, binding them not only by circumstance, but by choice, courage, and heart. In the days that followed, the palace returned to its quiet rhythm, though the memory of the battle lingered in every shadow and corridor. Lyria trained, learning to control her powers more fully, while Kaelin began to reveal aspects of himself that few had ever seen. The alpha who had loved and lost, who had been bound by guilt and responsibility, yet who now allowed himself to feel, to trust, to care. One evening, as they stood in the highest tower, the moon full and brilliant above, Kaelin spoke with a rare vulnerability. For centuries, I have carried the weight of the pack, of duty, of choices I cannot undo. And yet, with you, I feel something I did not think possible, something that is neither fear nor desire, but hope. Lyria's heart swelled. She had feared him, resisted him, and yet she could not deny the bond that had grown between them. I never wanted to change you, she whispered. I only wanted to protect my sister, and now I see that we protect more than just her. We protect each other, the pack, and the balance the moon has entrusted to us. Kalen's gaze softened, and he reached for her hand, holding it gently. The moon has chosen well, he said, and perhaps it has given me something I did not know I needed: courage, heart, and you. Their hands remained clasped, a silent promise passing between them. The palace, the forest, the moon above, it all seemed to hold its breath in recognition of the bond that had formed. Lyria no longer felt like a mere mortal. She was a chosen protector, a beacon of courage, and a partner to the Alpha King who had once seemed untouchable. Then, as the first light of dawn touched the towers, a figure appeared in the courtyard below. Elara, her sister, radiant and unscathed, a gift from the moon goddess herself. Lyria's heart leapt with joy and relief. Kalen's eyes followed her sister, a rare softness crossing his features. The sisters ran to each other, embracing tightly, tears mingling with laughter. "You are safe," Lyria whispered. "I promised the moon I would protect you, and I did." Elara pulled back, looking at both Lyria and Kalen. I don't understand," she said, awe and wonder in her eyes. "The moon, it chose you, Lyria, and you've changed everything." Kalen stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect to Elara. "The moon's will is not always understood," he said, "but courage, heart, and choice have brought us here. Together, we are stronger than any force in this forest or beyond." The sisters looked at each other and then at Kalen, understanding dawning. The moon had not only protected them, but it had chosen the right path for the Alpha King and for Lyria. A bond had been forged, stronger than any fear, stronger than any curse, and tempered by courage, love, and trust. That night, the moon shone brighter than ever, illuminating the palace and the forest beyond. Lyria and Kalen stood together, hands clasped, hearts aligned, knowing that their bond was no longer just magic or fate. It was choice, respect, and something far deeper than either had imagined. The forest whispered around them, and the distant howl of a wolf echoed through the trees. But it was no longer a warning. It was a song of triumph, a melody of courage and love. A testament to the bond forged under the moon goddess's watchful eye. For the first time in centuries, Kalen allowed himself to feel unguarded joy, and Lyria allowed herself to embrace the bond that had begun as a fated exchange and had become something far more profound. The moon had chosen, destiny had tested them, and together they had emerged stronger, united, and ready to face whatever future awaited them. And somewhere above, in the silver light of the moon, the goddess smiled, knowing her will had been fulfilled. The threads of fate had intertwined in ways that would echo through generations, and the forest, the palace, and the Alpha King's heart had been forever changed by courage, choice, and the power of love.